Well, to start with, all day you've seen presentations and slides on light mode. I choose to go dark mode. Okay, and if you notice, I'm dressed in the same way as well. Anyways, so how many of you have had a situation where you have opened something and then realized, oh, maybe I shouldn't have? It could be an email, it could be Tupperware at the back of your fridge, or it could possibly be just a moment conversation with your boss on Friday evening. So have you been in that situation? Well, we did too. And when that happened, our case only cost us $250,000. That's it. So today I'm going to share a story with you all and talk about the $250,000 mistake. So, before I proceed, I'm going to talk a little more about myself, apart from what John said. This slide was made by me, but designed by my son. So he wanted me to use a picture that he drew of me. And he wanted me to, on purpose, write my name next to it. So that is why the design looks like this. So it's a 7-year-old creation. All right. So I have lived all my life in India with a few years in the US, but then I moved to Netherlands. And in India, there is a lot of enthusiasm around things. And often, that enthusiasm masks the doubt that people have. Whereas when you come to Netherlands, people are very direct. And they will tell you if something is not good, they will tell you that it isn't good. So this cultural change for me is something that I experienced when I transitioned from India to Netherlands. And during this whole story, you're going to see a glimpse of how enthusiasm happens and where we call a spade a spade. So, the story begins with one of our senior leaders visiting a conference. So when senior leaders go to conference, they attend a few talks. They spend a lot of time at the booths where they meet a lot of people from the sales teams. And at the end of the conference, that senior leader came back with a beaming smile on his face. And the very next day, his language changed. His body language changed, but his language also changed. He started using words like revolutionary, paradigm shift. And people standing on the other side were thinking, oh boy, what is coming up? And then he said something that, I met these guys at the conference who are having this wonderful new AI tool which is going to make our life absolutely easy. And then he said, well, they promise us that things will be 10 times faster. They tell us that this system can predict defects before it happens. And also, we will eliminate the need for testers. And then he said the 3 words or the 4 words that we all want to listen, that the budget is approved. So once he said the budget is approved, that means it was a go for us. And then my friend simply said, can this AI also predict when the coffee machine is going to break? Probably that will be a good bonus for us, because that time we were not willing to take it. So what happened was, when we started using the tool, the first few sprints, things were wonderful. We suddenly saw that the cycle time was getting reduced by 20%. Brilliant, isn't it? So, that started giving us a lot of confidence, saying, oh, wow, things are going fine. But, after the release happened on a Friday, there was a big party. People were told that the drinks are on the house, and that's what we want. So after that big release came Monday morning. And this is what happened. So on the next Monday morning, there were 500 defects flagged by the AI system. Well, 503 to be precise. And when this news of 503 bugs came out, it sent shock waves through the company. Not only were the VPs, senior VPs, and the C-level shocked, it shocked the investors also. And they were curious as to what happened. How did the AI find so many bugs and so many people who are testing actually couldn't find any? So they said, okay, get your team together and start looking at these 500 bugs. So by the time we reached the 50th bug, the question started arising in our mind, are we really seeing value in what it is doing? Because what we discovered that out of the 503, there were only 25 legitimate bugs. The remaining 478 bugs, AI had just flagged because of certain things. What happened there? So number one cause was data bias. Now we all know that as humans, all of us are biased, aren't we? Is there anybody in this room who is not biased? Are you sure about that? So if a group of biased people is spending time in training AI, then AI is obviously going to be biased. That's an accepted fact. So there was a lot of data bias because what we had done was we had trained the AI model to understand our context with 3 years of previous bugs. So we had told that the AI system that, okay, these are the bugs which we had caught over the past 3 years. But we never told the AI that a lot of those bugs have actually been fixed already. Okay, so this is what happened. Then came the case of overfitting. So when simple things like usernames, when the username length started changing from 5 to 12 characters to 6 to 16 characters, AI couldn't understand because AI understands certain patterns, but these sudden changes that humans can do and test with, AI did not interpret that. So it flagged those as bugs as well. Then came the case of opacity. Now, in any system, when we are testing, when we find bugs, we at least expect some level of transparency. We want to understand why that bug is happening. But in case of the AI, it was just a case of the vendor telling us, well, you need to trust the system. You need to trust the system. That's it. It is doing its job. It is detecting anomaly. And if the system is detecting something, then it means it's real. That is the kind of confidence that the vendor was giving us because we had already given them a lot of money. And finally, simple things like UI sensitivity. Now, our designer, what he did was he changed the hex code of the design by one value, and AI flagged 47 bugs against it because the hex value of the design had changed by one parameter. So this is where we saw the AI was failing. But there were cases where it worked as well. Test case generation. AI does a fantastic job of generating test cases. Now, when we are thinking of usernames or for putting in the first name, last name field, we think of simple names, but AI thought of certain names where you have, in the last name, suppose you have something like O'Brien, where there's an apostrophe in the last name. Okay? So it thought of such situations, and it was smart enough to use that and test. So that was a very good insight, and likewise, it generated many other test cases. Then anomaly detection. Now, what our system was doing, that every Thursday at around 2 p.m., there was a particular job that was running, which was managing a whole, from the payment cycle, it was checking all the invoices, that job. And that was causing a break in the system for 47 milliseconds, which was triggering further challenges in the system. Now, this bug is something that the AI caught, which none of us testers were able to catch in so much of testing that we did. So it did do a great job. in terms of anomaly detection, and also in regression analysis. So regression testing was giving us results, but in a system like, for example, where we had the admin and the config panel, there were more than 300 tests. So analyzing 300 tests and the results from those tests would be a big challenge for us, but AI was able to do it beautifully. So there were areas where AI did a great job. But where did it flop completely? In doing exploratory testing. It could not go beyond certain parameters and think out of the box, because what it was doing is it was running the positive flows. Okay? Then, anything to do with compliance, especially in Europe with GDPR, there are so many regulations and compliances. If you don't train the system well enough for GDPR, it won't test against it, and it will miserably fail. And like I said, the UI and problem was there. When the designers changed something, the AI sort of missed it, and it failed miserably. So what did we decide? We said there's got to be something that we need to do to figure out and fix the problem. Because you can't just throw away a system. You spent $250,000 behind it, so there has to be a justification. And that's when one of our test leads, he came up and he also said the same thing, that just because somebody has used a hammer to drive in a screw, you don't throw away the hammer. So there's got to be a use of that hammer, and we have to find the right use of the hammer and the right use of the screwdriver. So that's where we took the system, we went through a whole process, and we said, okay, we are going to find out how we are going to fix it. So we came with a 7-step formula, and this is something that we have learned, and this is one of the lessons that we documented, okay, which is very useful. First was, any risky areas. For example, our application was meant for financial systems. So anything to do with payroll or anything to do with refund processing, where we were talking about huge amount of money, we said we will not give it to AI. We'll not let AI handle this, because this is a very risky option. So we kept that out. Then we had to identify where we could use AI effectively and where AI would not be such a good use. So, we said, okay, in areas, for example, regression analysis, wherever we need to look at logs, where we need to verify pipelines, AI does a great job, because it was good at analyzing stuff, so we said we will use it. Anything to do with compliance, anything to do with exploratory tests, we kept AI away from it. So we had to find that sweet spot where AI was effective in certain places and not effective in certain other places. Then the most important thing, bring the human in the loop. Now this morning we heard a beautiful keynote from Tarek, where he mentioned about bringing the human, and he spoke about human experience testing. This was a key step. At every step, we wanted the human to monitor what was going on, validate the results that AI was producing, and then take it forward. And then, I told you, initially we began with training the system on 3 years' data. But then when we went back to the drawing board, we changed our strategy and we said we will retrain our system. So what we started doing was we started shipping deltas to it, and we were training it at a higher frequency. Okay, we went in and we trained and retrained the data so that we could look at precision, we could look at recall, we could look at the drift, we could look at these aspects of machine learning and train the system better. Then we said, okay, we will build a dashboard which will capture the thresholds for us. So when we were doing the entire modeling, we said, okay, if we have a weekly precision of more than 85%, then we are going to accept the results that the AI is giving us. If it goes below 85% on a week-to-week basis, then we are not going to accept the system. This was something that was agreed as a team, agreed with all the stakeholders, with the business leaders, and also with the investors. When everybody was on the same page, we said, okay, that is something that we are going to make sure that we have. We also agreed that we will have alert levels, and if any team gets 3 alerts per day, then that is an alarm that we are going to have. So that's when we say, okay, we'll stop looking at AI, we'll put the human. So what we did was we built a dashboard which was keeping track of these alerts and the precision levels for us. Then what we did was, once we had these guardrails in place, we started reintroducing AI gradually. I told you about the sweet spots that we identified. So what we started doing was, we brought in AI in the areas where we thought we would drive value, and we kept AI out of the areas where we saw that there was no value. And then we also put in a monitoring, which was continuous monitoring, because we had to keep looking at it all the time. I know that, I told you that we put a human in the loop, but that is not enough. You need to be able to monitor the system continuously so that you know that whatever you're doing is actually working for you. All right. So, any Iron Man fans here? Avengers, Iron Man. At least some of you. So he wears that special suit, right? Is that suit of any value without him? Probably not, right? So while we think that, AI is like the suit, without the human, it has absolutely no value. This was our biggest lesson that we learned, that if things have to work, then they have to work in partnership. AI and humans have to partner. And that's how it is going to work for us. It is absolutely powerful, but without the human, it's useless. In doing this whole exercise, we identified that as testers, our skill set needs to change. So something that was very important for us was to build in data literacy capabilities. We wanted to have somebody who could analyze the data before we fed it into the system so that we could qualify it as a good data set. Now, for that, obviously, we had to make sure that we are handling the biases. So there were bias removal techniques that were used where multiple inputs were taken and vetted against each other so that we could keep track and we could feed clean data to the system. Then we had model validation at every stage where we could go and check if the model is still working as per the thresholds that we have decided. Then, obviously, statistics play a big role. So testers had to start thinking statistically and start, understanding the math behind it as to how it is working. That was very important. And finally, we said we are not going to use either human or AI. We are going to use both, and we are going to make sure that both collaborate with each other. If somebody did not have that understanding, then we had to help that team member to undergo special training in AI so that they can understand how they can leverage AI more as a partner, not as an enemy. So what happened when we reintroduced? The results changed. Obviously, we started seeing less and less of false positives. Our cycles went up to 40% faster. And most importantly, the team's trust in the AI system went up from 30% to close to 85%. And even now, it is in practice. The same AI system has evolved with all ChatGPT and all the other AI tools coming in. So things have improved a lot. Now, the biggest challenge for us was the reality of the budget. Now, as I told you right in the beginning, that we had spent 250,000, so we had to justify the value of that money to our investors. And by doing this whole exercise over again, we were in a way able to justify the budget. So it was very important that whenever you decide a tool, you have to consider these side areas that you might need to retrain. There may be failures. So next time you think of any budget conversation, think about the side effects that you may have. Think about the scenarios where you may fail and what steps you need to do for a recovery, and consider those costs as well. So here's a simple playbook. Okay. So first, assess the situation, understand the concept. Then you build your experiment. Okay, without assessing, if you build your experiment, then you may be in trouble. Then make sure once the experiment is built, you validate by performing that experiment, and then you finally integrate it with your system. And always, always monitor the system continuously. This is a simple playbook. We use it over and over again. We have tried it on multiple projects. It works like a piece of cake. So, the big question for you guys is, where will you draw the line between human usage and AI usage? Anyone? Someone wants to? Sorry? Absolutely. There is no good answer. The answer is it depends on your context. If I am testing a healthcare app, my parameters are going to be different versus if I am going to test a social media app, my parameters are going to be completely different. So you are the best judge of that line. Discuss with your team, plan accordingly, look at the concepts, and then decide. So I want to thank you for listening to me, and I want to leave you with this thought that the future of testing is in partnerships and not rivalry with AI. Thank you so much. Kosanam.
Thank you, Brijesh. Thank you very much for your presentation. And now we have the question and answer session. Let's see if we have any questions. Oh, look at that. Look at all these questions you got. Can you tweak it and tell it something like, I want you to try and break the system? Would that cover negative scenarios?
Okay. So, yes and no. First, I'll answer no, because in most cases, testers don't break the system. They report if it's already broken. Okay, but yes, if you want to intentionally break it and see if it can be broken, yes, you can do it. You can introduce, I wouldn't call them negative scenarios. You can use the unhappy path flows. Let's call it that way. I'm more comfortable with that usage, where you start thinking about what if scenarios. And you can do that, and especially with your AI, you can do it in a lot of different ways in terms of your training data itself. Or if you're using LLMs, then you could ask questions to the LLM which may challenge the system itself. Okay, or ask the LLM to generate scenarios which may be quite challenging. So that's a very effective way of using LLMs. Sorry,
okay.
I hope that answers.
Okay, thanks, BD. Wonderful presentation.
Thank
there
you.
You go. So in your expert opinion, is AI a magic wand or Pandora's box?
A bit of both. So okay, we started off with it being a Pandora's box, but we turned it into a sort of a magic wand. But I would say it's more of a Pandora's box than a magic wand. Yeah, that's my personal experience.
Have you tried cross-checking the results with another tool, model?
Yes. So once we started getting success, we wanted to validate our results and make sure that we built a more capable system, which was able to be used by, which could be used by other platforms and other projects. So we had to validate our results against other tools and other models, and we were successful. The success rate of, in case of the project that we did, was around 85%. With the other model, it was around 78%. So it was pretty close, I would say. Yeah, 7% less, but we still took it.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and I'm going to choose this one. Why is finding 25 actual bugs seen as a failure?
No, the 25 bugs was not a failure. What was seen as a failure was the 500 bugs. which AI system had flagged, which were false positives. 478 of them, to be precise, were actually not bugs. They were the result of the poor training, the opacity the system had, the overfitting that happened. So that was the problem. The 25 bugs was not seen as a failure. It was good that we saw only 25, because then we could work on it, we could fix them, and the system was up.
Okay, the last 3 questions, please find Brijesh after this presentation and ask him that, because we have to keep the show rolling.
I'll be at the speaker's corner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brijesh.
Thank you, John.
I forgot this at the beginning. I always ask my presenters one interesting thing about themselves, and I forgot to mention this. And Brijesh told me something really interesting, and I'm still kind of not, it's hard to fathom, but he's one of the few people in the world that has had heart surgery and brain surgery.
And I'm here.
It's really interesting. Anyway.
Well, I can see the surprises on people's faces, just like yours.
Okay, thank you so much again.
Thank you.